Online at consumerqb.com.
All right, welcome in. Appreciate you. We got Attorney Patrick Smith coming up here in just a minute. We're going to talk about Senate Bill 280, which was about short-term rentals. That's going to be interesting content with him. Also, the Supreme Court decision with Trump on the ballots, leaving Trump on the ballots. And, of course, we'll get into estate planning and elder law coming up since he is the guru around here for all things related to that. Later on, Fred Muth as well, Tampa Screens and Aluminum, coming up on the Consumer Quarterback Show. I want to give a quick shout-out to our friends here at the 860, The Answer, Great American Cigar Tour with Sebastian Gorka is coming up. So get ready, Tampa Bay. AM 860, The Answer, and Wired Differently proudly present an evening with the one and only Dr. Sebastian Gorka. Join us on Tuesday, March 19th. I'm going to be there with some of my show partners and friends for an unforgettable discussion on politics and life, all while indulging in the finest cigars. That's right. It's an exclusive event you won't want to miss. Join us at Corona Cigar Company in Tampa. Doors open at 6:30 p.m. Reserve your spot now for an evening filled with insight, laughter, and camaraderie at theanswertampa.com. Get your tickets from theanswertampa.com. That's always a fun time. Patrick, you ever go to those cigar nights? They have Dennis Prager in town, Mike Gallagher. And
I'm not against them. But rarely does my calendar permit me to get out for something like that on a Tuesday. As much as I would love to attend something like that, I just don't have the time.
Yeah, man. I get it.
Crazy busy.
So welcome in with that.
Thank you,
Patrick Smith, Attorney Patrick Smith, longtime friend of the program, and
absolutely
longtime radio show host yourself as well.
Yes, sir. But it's always more fun to be on someone else's show. So all the responsibility is on you. I'm just here to talk.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? It's kind of a little different dynamic.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So, let's jump right into some of this. So, Senate bill, short-term rentals are such a big, thing happening in Tampa Bay, across, well, not only Tampa Bay, but other areas where you have this influx of people coming in to enjoy the beaches or enjoy the local attractions. What's your thoughts around the Senate Bill 280?
So we had the author of the bill, Senator Nick DeCiglia, on the show, and we discussed the bill in detail. And this is an issue that we've really tracked from its origins, from the town hall meetings there in Indian Rocks Beach, and throughout our broadcast with various callers calling in from across the state. And sort of my key takeaway from it, separate from the bill, was that the goal here is really not short-term rental regulation. It's behavior regulation.
There you go.
And whether or not they're short-term renters or they're people who have lived there 30 years as homesteaders, if they're throwing loud parties at 3 a.m., if they have 30 cars parked in the driveway and along the street every weekend, they have tons of trash all over the place every week, it's a problem, whether they're a short-term renter or not.
Yep.
So I really think it needs to be, we need to shift the paradigm away from short-term rentals versus not short-term rentals and focus on behavioral issues.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Nick was trying to do with this. Is it a perfect solution to the problem? Absolutely not. Is it momentum? Is it a step in a direction of a solution? And I kind of think about it as a great politician I heard say one time, let's find a solution that we all hate equally.
There you go.
And sometimes that's what you have to do to get it started.
Yeah.
And I think that you work towards perfect, but you don't let perfection be the enemy of better. And I think this is a movement in a direction to make it better for Floridians throughout the state.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense because if you have, and a lot of times this is in a nicer area because people want to be in those nicer areas, closer to the beach, closer to the attractions. And if you have, people coming in, treating it like a spring break party and doing all those nefarious activities, as you mentioned, it's not going to be as attractive. It's going to hurt property values. And it also, you have a strong lobby on the other side. That's the hotel industry as well. I wonder how they weighed in on that as well.
Well, not only hotel industry, I mean, small businesses.
Yeah.
I mean, in Indian Rocks Beach alone, there are tons of small businesses that thrive on tourism. So if you shut down short-term rentals, you could effectively impact a lot of small businesses there in Indian Rocks Beach.
Sure.
So I think you have to consider economic impact, and there's a solution out there that kind of, like we said, makes everyone the least angry possible.
Yep.
And I think this is a move in the direction, but I think the great way the legislature is handling it is they're recognizing this is not perfect, it's not permanent, and it's adjustable.
Yep.
And it's able to be regulated. They put more provisions in the bill about reasonableness and allowing the cities to have some control over those standards, and I think that's good. The more power we return for home rule is good, but I still think the state did the right thing by providing some general guidance so that we don't have cities all over the place with this epic spectrum of regulation between the cities.
Yeah, Patrick, something else that was interesting in the news lately is these accessory dwelling units. When you look at that, so if you have a quarter-acre lot, you got a footprint of your current home, but in the back corner you could easily fit a mother-in-law suite, for example. What's your thoughts around that? In some municipalities are a little bit more lenient towards those, and some are a little bit more stringent.
Well, and again, I mean, I think city by city, they ought to have the authority to regulate within certain parameters under statewide guidelines. But again, I think it comes down to behavioral issues.
Yeah.
I mean, it really doesn't matter if it's your property. As a classic Ronald Reagan kind of Republican,
Yep.
I have really big issues with government telling me what I can do with private property.
Yeah.
And I believe what Reagan said, the 9 scariest words in the English language are,
Yep.
I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
Yep.
And so I just caution people. And when I was interviewed on local news about Senate Bill 280, I said, be very careful. Because you may be inviting the government in, but good luck getting them back out again.
Yes.
So I said, just be really careful with this invitation for the government to come in and regulate private property ownership.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you just joined us, folks, we're talking with attorney Patrick Smith here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. I'm your host, Brandon Rhymes. Now, Patrick also hosts his hour-long show Saturdays at 8 a.m., very popular show, live call-in show, and congratulations on the momentum, man. It's been going great.
Thank you, buddy. Yeah, we're blown away every broadcast and every week with the popularity of the show and all the fantastic listeners who send us messages and all the new listeners every week, and could have never predicted that it would become what it is today. So thank you.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, and you're syndicated on a lot of different towers, not just Salem's towers out there. You're across the state.
Yeah, we're on Cox, and we're on lots of independent stations throughout. I think it's up to 14 or 15 now that carry the show.
Nice. I love it. Good stuff, man. I love those entrepreneurial and those success stories. That's
Absolutely.
awesome. So the Supreme Court weighed in 9-0 decision this past week, and it was interesting because, you know, the left-wing media just went crazy about that.
Yeah, and I have some issues with it 9-0. I mean, I know that's the official ruling, was that it was 9-0, but it's really more like 6-3.
Okay.
So when you go look at the opinion, what the crux of it came down to was whether or not Section 5 of the 14th Amendment gives Congress the ability to enforce Section 3. And 9 of the justices said yes, essentially, in this case, with regard to President Trump on the Colorado ballot. But really, it was 6 of the justices who said that's going to be our general rule in every circumstance when it comes to state-level officials trying to regulate federal office holders. And so what you see in the concurring opinion by Sotomayor was basically this accusation against the other 6. Why did you go so broad? You could have decided this case very narrowly. So why go and decide cases that haven't come yet when you only need to decide this one very narrow issue? And from, you know, the other 6's perspective, the way I see it is, well, you know they're coming. So why not go ahead and just sort of lay the groundwork now?
Got it.
And I think what the other 3 were saying was, well, let's handle it case by case, which is going to give a lot more work to the court. But I think the court here strained to present a united front. So that's why I think you got that 9-0, and I'm using quotes. It's not great for radio, but air quotes, 9-0 opinion, because they wanted to appear unified.
Yeah.
So that they don't appear political in a highly politicized decision.
Yeah, yeah. What a weird situation that just to have it even thought of, that we have to waste taxpayer dollars on should this potential president candidate, former president, be on the ballot. To me, it's just insane that.
Well,
it's
and
even
in the majority opinion, and what they said, I think they got it right, was had you allowed state officials to regulate eligibility for federal office holders, the fragmentation throughout the country would have been bad for the union. Mm-hmm. You could have had, you know, some candidates are on the ballot in Tennessee but not in Texas, or on the ballot in California but not in Oklahoma, Virginia, and West Virginia. Well, it's a mess. It's all over the place. So I think they got it right. And whether or not it was too broad or broad enough, I don't know. But I think they got this opinion right under the constitutional law, the politics set aside.
Yeah. And if you think back to the origin of this, it was the whole J6 setup. To me, J6 was a setup. And if you watch Tucker Carlson and some of these other different news organizations, you get your news not from just the mainstream sources. You would know that the Capitol Police was not warned. What was the head Capitol Police officer was not getting intel from the FBI, et cetera. And Pelosi turned down the troops. Like, it was a complete setup. And then how many insurrections have we had in the history of the planet that did not involve any weapons of guns or major weapons?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think it's a 1938 silent Japanese film called Rashomon, and if you've never seen it, it's a fantastic watch. But it's a great demonstration of there were 3 participants in the story. There's participant A's version of events, B's version of events, C's version of events, and then there's the truth. And I kind of think January 6th, as hotly and emotionally debated as it is, you can find your truth in that.
Right.
if you look hard enough. And then there's what actually happened.
Yep.
And I think that you have to sort of step back from all the political figures and the talking heads on television and really look at the independent facts yourself and decide, here's what I think happened. You have to decide what your truth is based on sort of independent analysis without the taint from either side, which is extremely hard to do because both sides are really pushing January 6th and trying to push it into one column for their advantage.
Yeah, it really is. And it's a shame that our country's come to that point where you have the fake dossiers and the stories that are hidden, and the laptop was Russian, disinformation. You have all these different sides, and then, like you mentioned, somewhere in the middle is the truth. And then so many people, they're swayed so much by a friend or a family or some whatever type of location they live in. Typically, cities tend to have one way of looking at things. People that are more rural or more suburban have a different way of looking at things. So that's what they're doing, though, is they're dividing our country.
Well, I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, division is often profitable.
Right.
And I think where there's conflict, in the media world, and we're part of the media, so I say that, from this side of it, where there's good conflict, there's a good story, and, you can make more money in the media world. So I'm not saying they're all about making money, but that is a very real aspect of making money in a profit-driven corporation. Is the lifeblood of that corporation. So to say it's not, I think, is being disingenuous.
Right. Absolutely. We're talking with attorney Patrick Smith here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. Now, your primary focus is elder law and estate planning, those types of laws. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah. Day to day, that's what I do is I do wealth transfer, asset protection, and estate planning for families to help them pass along wealth through multiple generations.
Yep, because you have these stories in the news, or that when it seems like when it happens to a celebrity that has is in the limelight. So like a James Gandolfini, or I think it was even Michael Jackson. A lot of these different high level celebrities didn't have a plan in place, so it's amplified when you see millions of dollars either going back to the state or some version of probate. Right.
Well, the one I always think of is Joe Robbie, the former owner of the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah.
When he passed away, that's actually what led to him the family having to sell the team.
Wow.
The planning was not sufficient, so they were unable to pay the estate taxes.
Wow.
There was no planning in place for that, so the only way he could free up the liquidity was for the family to sell the team. And a lot of professionals say with better planning that could have easily been avoided. I don't know if that's the case, but I know that better planning could have certainly reduced the tax obligation there. And I think that at the end of the day, when you have the opportunity to plan, no matter what size the estate, and I think that's another misconception. People think, well, I don't have enough. Well, it's not always about the size of the estate. I mean, simple trusts start outside of any exemptions at $75,000 is our recommendation. So I think a lot of people, it's more of being a good steward of what you do have, no matter if it's one mite, two mites, three, whatever God's blessed you with, be a good steward of it and make sure you pass it along and don't fumble it on the 1 yard line and leave it up to the state by statute to decide who's going to get it.
Yeah, it's terrible when that happens, and then you have all of the disagreements within the family.
No, families would never disagree over what level
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Reach out to the hotline if you'd love to connect with attorney Patrick Smith or any of our expert contributors for that matter, 727-263-3707. You can call or text our show hotline. That's 727-263-3707. Online at consumerqb.com, consumerqb.com. Just a couple of minutes left. I wanted to kind of give the mic back to you. What do we need to know? What are you kind of thinking about? Here we are at the end of the first quarter, so planning is pertinent as well.
Yeah, I think if it's been more than 3 years since you've seen your estate planning attorney, whether it's me or any other brother or sister attorney out there, get in for your free review. Hopefully they do free reviews with you. And if they don't and you want to meet with an attorney that does, we'll be happy to meet with you. Our office line is 877-754-6764. And thank you for promoting the show. You're also welcome to tune in every Saturday morning. We're on the air with you 8 a.m. To 9 a.m. And we'd love you to be part of the show and call in with a question or a comment on one of our topics, or if it's just something off the wall. I take pretty liberal calls as far as I don't really tell any call screener to restrict much. And so if you have a question that's off topic, we'll take the question. I'm not picky about that. So a lot of people feel bad. They said, you were talking about taxes, and I wanted to talk about, auto maintenance or something. And we actually had that happen live on the show one time. So I was walking this poor soul how to fix something on their automobile, and I said I could just kind of feel my wife rolling her eyes because I am the last person to be giving anyone automotive advice. But I think we actually helped her, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, if you call in with any legal question, we'll do our best to answer your question live on the air. And thank you so much, Brandon, for having us back on the show.
Absolutely.
We'll have you back on my show soon.
Let's do it. And what's your website again, Patrick?
It's attorneypatricksmith.com.
attorneypatricksmith.com.
Yep.
All right. Awesome. Always a pleasure catching up with you, buddy.
Likewise.
All right, taking a quick break. We're going to come back. We got our friend Fred Muth with Tampa Screens and Aluminum, local contractor extraordinaire, coming up here on the Consumer Quarterback Show, online at consumerqb.com.
This is Work Done, and you're listening to the Real Estate Quarterback Show hosted by my man, Brandon Rhymes.